All right, guys, we've got ourselves another NFL preview here, this time for the Tennessee Titans. We're going to do our normal thing. We're going to go through the roster. We're going to go through what happened last year, some of the additions, some of the losses, some of the schedule stuff, all that fun stuff, any bets we might have perhaps at the end as well. And yeah, so why don't we go ahead and jump right on into it like we normally do. Again, last year for Tennessee, not so fun. This team finishes 3-14, only 3 wins all year, and didn't even really necessarily get like what you would hope to get. You end up with the fourth pick overall, so you don't even really get like one of the elite picks there, going 3-14, and again 0-6 in division, which is not ideal. So yeah, a really bad year, just top to bottom. There was no real growth from some of those guys. Cam Ward, who we'll talk about in a minute, didn't really pop as a rookie. And again, the situation was pretty bad. Brian Callahan, probably one of the worst coaches we've seen. They're definitely one of the worst I've personally seen. Um, but he's gone now. Robert Saleh comes in. This is his second head coaching stint. He had the Jets not so long ago. Brian Daboll comes in. He's done with the Giants. He'll be the offensive coordinator here. So a decent amount of change here for, again, some of the early for some of the younger guys here. Be another, again, another coach, another offensive coordinator. It's not exactly what you want as young players, but also if it's not working, you need to get that kind of out of there as soon as possible. And again, they're going to go ahead and change it here. Going into the year, last year, I thought the goal should have been just kind of getting the young guys up to speed and, seeing if we can build a base there. Didn't really happen. And you only win 13 games again. And expectations were a little bit higher than that. And we're coming into another year where it feels like the expectations are similar. Hopefully you can take a step. Hopefully the young guys develop, and we'll see where we are at the end of the year and if we have a good base of young players on what they can and cannot do. But this is going to be a full rebuild. When you win 3 games, it has to be kind of a reset, and we're getting a reset here. So in my opinion, the goals haven't changed. They've just kind of moved a year further down the line. And we'll see what happens. Last year, the offense was 30th overall in EPA, 30th in pass offense, 27th in rush offense. The defense was 28th, 29th in pass defense, 16th in rush defense. And we'll talk about some of the roster stuff going forward, but there's a reason for that gap there. But all in all, the offense couldn't do much on the ground, couldn't do much of anything through the air. And defensively, while the ground stuff was decent, couldn't really do anything defensively with the way the secondary was playing there. So hopefully some changes here, and that's what the hope is. There are some players who go out the door a little bit. Chigakonkwu at tight end. T'Vondre Sweat on the interior is gone. Sebastian Joseph Day, Arden Key on the edge, gone. Oli Udo at tackle, Jihad Ward, Kevin Zeitler, some of these other guys. Kaiir Elam, which is an addition by subtraction there. Van Jefferson gone. Mike Brown at safety. So a couple important players there. Again, T'Vondre Sweat I kind of liked, gone. Chig was good for Cam Ward. I'm not so sure how high up the tight end list he is really, but gone. Arden Key, useful. So there are guys who were useful here who are out the door. They do bring in a couple of decent players for me. John Franklin Myers, decent addition. Wan'Dale Robinson, decent addition. Alontae Taylor at corner. Cordell Flott at corner. Both decent additions. Those last 3 guys are probably a bit overpaid or a lot overpaid, but they probably bring the floor up at least a little bit. Daniel Bellinger at tight end. Jordan Elliott on the interior. Austin Slotman at center. Jermaine Johnson comes in at edge. Jordan Elliott on the interior. And then the draft. A couple of early picks here. Carnell Tate, number 4 in the draft there in the first round. Keldrick Falk on the interior. Anthony Hill at linebacker. And then it's kind of further down, like 5th, 6th, 7th round guys. Fernando Carmona at guard. Nicholas Singleton at running back out of Penn State. Jackie Marshall And on the interior, Pat Coogan at center and Jaron Kanek at tight end. So a variety of different players bought in for a variety of different positions. They do lose some stuff. They do bring some stuff in. Um, in terms of how I view some of this stuff, again, it's not relevant really for what we do. A lot of it's kind of just seeing how good we can make the team, or a lot of it is just viewing how the team is. But in terms of GMing and in terms of future stuff, I didn't like a lot of this stuff. Again, Alante Taylor, Cordell Flott, Wandale Robinson are all okay players. Wandale's probably the best of the bunch, but that's pretty significant overpays in that secondary for not a whole lot of talent, which is a worry. Um, so stuff like that is a hindrance as as it goes forward. You get a wide receiver really early, stuff like that is the wide receiver is not a hindrance early, but when you're a really bad team and you kind of spend a lot of money on things that don't make you a ton better, again, corner there. We have a lot at wide receiver now. And it's not even, I'm not going against the Tate pick. It's just, there's a lot of wide receiver here now, a lot of money kind of put into this position. A lot of money put into corner, and I'm not so sure how much better they got as a whole. So it's an interesting thought. Again, it's just GMing stuff. We're kind of here to break down how the team's going to be this year. But not in love with some of the stuff they did, even though it made them slightly better on the field for the most part. Let's jump into the roster, though. Cam Ward will start at quarterback. We always do. Number 1 overall pick last year. Didn't really hit the ground running. Last year in our preview, we spoke a little, briefly about this type of quarterback hitting the ground running, and this type of quarterback just in general to me isn't something I look for. Players who spend a lot of time running around behind offensive lines in college and turning the football over. Those two particular things are pretty big red flags to me that don't tend to get better. And they didn't for Cam Ward. And now we're going into his second year and he's got those issues. Again, it's not for me. It's not like he can't get better again, but all those problems that were coming out of college did not get better in the NFL. And they're things he's going to have to work on coming into it. Again, this is not a throw Cam Ward in the trash and restart type of thing, but he's got a decent amount of work to do to be a proper NFL quarterback. But again, the turnover stuff is a worry. The sack stuff is a worry. Last year, all the metric stuff kind of put him above Shedeur Sanders and behind JJ McCarthy, right there in second to last in the NFL and a lot of things. He did play a tough schedule, so there is that caveat, and it won't be as tough this year defensively. But again, sacked on 26% of his pressures, lost 7 fumbles. When he was under pressure, his EPA was minus 0.62 points or EPA per play, which is 40th in the league, which is genuinely really bad. I think a lot of, with EPA, it's a little bit tough, but like when you see a positive EPA, it's expected points added. When you see negatives, it's obviously better off to throw it into the floor a bunch of times for the most part. Negative 0.62 EPA is like when Cam Ward was under pressure, every 15 times he went back in the pocket under pressure, the other team scored 7 points. Like that is the expectation, that the other team was 7 points up. So like it was really bad. Again, 23rd in success, or 23% success rate, which was 38th in the NFL, 42% completion rate, which was 37th in the NFL. Again, this is all under pressure. 55 total sacks. All of that is gigantic issues. He had more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws on just all snaps in general for the year. There is a leap that is needed here, and I think the coaching will be better. Again, Brian Daboll, I'd trust more to be decent in coaching up an offense than I did with Brian Callahan, for sure. Again, Brian Callahan's tenure might genuinely be the worst of my lifetime, for sure. And Dayball's shown that he could be useful with some of this stuff, so we'll see. Um, but again, on my end, there is pretty significant worry that this just might be a bust. We'll see. Again, I'm not throwing Cam Ward out, but the leaps he has to take to get to an average quarterback is pretty significant. So we'll see what it looks like going into the new year. The preseason stuff so far has not been good, so let's hope he takes a step. Again, it's a reset for him too. This is his second year in the NFL, and he'll be on his second offensive coordinator, which will be with their second offensive play caller, which means three different offensive play callers in his last 3 years. If you go back to where he was at Miami, um, it's a lot. It's a lot of change for a young quarterback who has things to iron out. So we'll see what Cam Ward looks like this year, but I'm not super high on Cam Ward. I wasn't coming into the draft. What I've seen kind of just lines up with my opinion, and I'm not so sure that he kind of gets out of that. So for the moment, not exactly sure where I ranked him on my quarterbacks. It was pretty low. I've not said some. I've been pretty low the entire thing. My 27th ranked quarterback. We'll see where that ends up for him. But all in all, he needs to take a step. They bring in Mitch Trubisky, who's a solid backup. Again, if Cam Ward misses games and this team needs wins, like if they're, if they start the season like, I don't know, 3-1, and Mitch Trubisky comes in, has to play 2 games, Mitch Trubisky is a decent backup and could win you one of those. Will Levis further down the line, Hendon Hooker, just a lot of guys who haven't really made it in the NFL. But Trubisky is a useful backup. Wide receiver, this is an interesting group. Carnell Tate comes in again from Ohio State. He was my favorite wide receiver in the draft. So we'll see what his rookie year looks like. I really like him. Wan'Dale Robinson comes in from New York, overpaid, but a really reliable slot receiver. Caught, I think it was 92 balls last year, over 1,000 yards, and just an overall solid, good player. Calvin Ridley, we'll see what he looks like. He is getting a little bit older. I haven't been the hugest fan of recent Calvin Ridley, so we'll see what he can do, but his presence on the team, the 1-2-3 here is good. Again, Calvin Ridley, Carnell Tate on the outside, and Wan'Dale on the inside is a good 3. So, the offense will have some pass catchers to throw to for sure. Shamir Dike or Dyke, I'm not exactly sure. Alec, I really like him, and I don't know how to say his name. Iomanor, probably Iomanor. Solid 4. I don't have a problem with him being a 4. I don't have a problem with DK being a 4. Bryce, further down the line, Bryce Oliver there. You have Restrepo, who played with Ward for a bit. KJ Osborne still floating around in the NFL. So, to be honest, this is a good room and a solid room, and could be. I don't know if the floor is super high because, again, I'm not super high on Calvin Ridley, and we'll see what happens with Carnell Tate. But this could be a pretty solid room, all things considered, going into the new year. So can't hate there. And if Carnell Tate is just a 1 from the jump, then you're looking at it. You have a really nice, then you have a 1, then you have a pretty good slot guy and an older vet who can do things as, the third option, which is pretty good. Running back, Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears, they're both okay, solid, lower third kind of guys, but can do a job for you. You don't expect a ton of, or I don't expect a ton of explosiveness out of this room. I don't expect, just in general, for this room to just be fantastic or anything like that. But it's going to get you your yards when they're given to them, and they're not going to screw up a whole ton. I think this is an okay room. I'm not expecting a ton. It's probably like Tony Pollard's like wherever I put him, right in the like 25 to 30 range for running backs, all of them like combined there, starters, backups, all that stuff. He's right around that 38 range or 30 range, and Tyjae Spears is not super far behind him. So you're getting an okay floor. I just don't know if there's any real ceiling here with these two guys. Nicholas Singleton comes in from Penn State. We'll see if he can add to it. Michael Carter is floating around the NFL still. So, it's an okay room. Again, the ceiling probably not there, but the floor, it's not horrific or anything like that. So that's all right. That's pretty decent. Tight end, they do lose Chig. And then they bring Daniel Bellinger in. As a Giants fan, I like Bellinger. You'll like him too, I think. Good blocker, can get out there and catch sometimes. Solid block again, though. Solid blocker. Gunnar Helm, second year man, out, was growing a little bit, getting used to it last year, and was getting better as the year kind of went on. So we'll see what he can do there. Kyle Granson, Jaron Kanek, the rookie who we talked about there, late 7th round pick. We'll see there. But look, it's not. It's for the moment, it's probably the worst tight end room in the league in terms of just talent and what you're going to get production wise. But you can get some good blocking here and some help in the run game. And again, this isn't a room that is in dire need of upgrade this year. So perhaps you find a better player down the line, or Gunnar Helm, grows into one. Again, he's very young, and tight ends take a little bit to kind of hit the ground running in the NFL. We'll see. But for now, just on pure talent, this is probably the worst room in the league, but they can do some decent positive things. Offensive line. This is going to be a bad unit. There's one good player on it. Peter Skoronski just recently got paid, I think. 5th rated guard on PFF last year. 7th in pass block win rate for all interior offensive linemen last year, which is really nice. 2 sacks allowed, which, again, you want to get rid of all in all, but for a team that gives up 55 to only give up 2 is pretty good, particularly when a quarterback is running around quite a bit. So a really good player, good year last year. Rest of this unit, not super great. Austin Schlottman comes in. He had minimal snaps last year. We'll see. In terms of getting a handle on him as a whole, it's pretty difficult. Again, he had some, didn't have a ton of snaps last year, but was all right in those snaps. The years before just wasn't good in his limited snaps, so there's not a lot of sample size anywhere really, and we'll see if he could be useful at center. Cordell Volson will start at guard on the other side of Skoronski. Not been great so far. Also missed last year altogether, so a couple of not so nice things there. We'll see what he looks like. Tackle, Dan Moore on the left side. Nothing horrible. He's all right. Can put in a shift, but it's not super high up on the chain in terms of talent, ability to block consistently down to down. It's just not on the level as you kind of find across the NFL a lot of the time. So it's not super great. Again, it's not horrible, can hold his own, but in terms of just the ceiling, it's not really there. JC Latham at right tackle, he was all right last year. Took a bit of a step. That being said, you took him 7th a couple years ago, and you kind of want, it's time to take that genuine, are you going to be good right now, or are you going to be good step? Maybe 2 steps. He needs to take those. We'll see what happens. Again, he took a bit of a step last year, but he needs another one probably if he wants to become the anchor on this right-hand side. Depth, a bit funky. You get lower end draft picks with Fernando Carmon at guard and Pat Coogan at center. Who Pat Coogan might get some snaps if Schlottman just doesn't look good, which could be the case. But 2 rookies on the interior there, 2 late round rookies on the interior there. Austin Deculus, whatever it is, was the worst graded tackle on PFF last year, genuinely dead last, which is not good. Jackson Slater and Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, there's like no snaps there. They combined for like 50 snaps between them, both of them in their second year there. So nothing to really report. Again, this depth room is a whole lot of nothing on the third line. The second line has two guys who played like no snaps, two rookies, late round rookies, and someone who graded as the worst tackle in the league last year. So not only is this unit bad, it could potentially get really bad if there's some injuries. If Skoronski, God forbid, goes down, it would be dead on the worst offensive line in the league without even like question, and it might already be there with him in the team. So it's a problem. And again, there's a lot of problems on the offense. The offense was 30th last year in EPA. There's expectation that it's not going to take, a 10 place jump in a year where the only thing added was a new coordinator and an early round wide receiver. It's going to be tough. Again, Brian Daboll, new guy in here, we'll see. But unless Cam Ward takes a jump, this is going to be really similar to what it was last year. And again, they finished 30th in EPA per play last year, so not exactly a good spot to be in. So not expecting a ton out of this offense. The goal would be to kind of implement the offense and, have a pulse there offensively and get Cam Ward in a position where he looks like he could, push toward being an average quarterback in the NFL by the end of this year. There are just a lot of things holding it back. Again, Cam Ward himself, and then the offensive line is going to be bad. Tight end room's bad. Running game is going to be average at best. And again, I kind of like the wide receiver room, but there's there's a lot still to kind of look at. You got a rookie who's supposed to kind of come in and be that guy right away, and you got an older guy in Calvin Ridley who there's expectations sitting on him a little bit. So we'll see. Again, I'm not super high on the offense. I'm not sure how big of a step it takes. That being said, there are some positive things going for them, particularly compared to last year. As for the defense, it was bad last year. Again, particularly in coverage, 30th, I believe it was, 29th in coverage, and then 28th total EPA. So, bottom 3, bottom 4 last year. The rush defense was pretty good, and we're going to talk about it in a second, or not really good. The rush defense was average for the most part, but it was a lot better than the pass defense. And when there's a bit of a struggle there because, it's different when you have a decent unit on both sides. Like when the pass defense is good and the rush defense is good, they kind of help each other a little bit. When one unit, like the pass defense here, is really bad, then you're kind of only getting running in late game spots that are kind of dead, or unexpected spots that kind of keep the defense on its heels a little bit. So it could be a little bit better there on the rush defense this year. We'll see. But the secondary is the one that has to take a step. So let's jump into the roster here. We'll start on the defensive line. The interior defensive line here is the best unit on the team by a pretty significant margin, I would say. Again, Jeffrey Simmons is a very, very, very good in defensive tackle there. Game wrecker. Again, top, 2, 3, wherever you want to put him. Top 1 if you want. Third ranked interior defensive lineman on PFF last year. And we can just read through the categories he was first in the league from the interior here. First in forced fumbles, first in the league in stops, first in sacks. From the inside, of course, he had 12 of them. First in hurries, second in total pressures. Just an insane resume last year. And again, he's been pretty good for a while now. But those numbers from the interior are so huge, particularly, again, interior pressure for quarterbacks is significantly more of a problem than, from the edge. You're looking at it right up in your face. It collapses the pocket pretty much immediately, and it pushes you to leave the pocket, and it forces you into the edge rushers. Not very often are edge rushers getting around. When an edge rusher gets around, particularly around the back on the outside, you can kind of step and find room a lot of the time. When a guy comes through the middle, you have to go all the way around to escape the pocket, and it's a significantly more difficult thing to deal with, particularly against quarterbacks who are not mobile, like your Jared Goffs, your Aaron Rodgers is currently. Players like that, in particular, struggle with pressure through the middle. And there aren't a ton of great guards and centers in the league right now. So you're getting really good production a lot. And we'll talk about the schedule later on. But anybody with an interior defensive or an interior offensive line that really isn't very good could be in a little bit of trouble, pretty aggressive trouble, depending on it. We're gonna like Washington, whose offensive line, if today they played, or they had their joint practice with the Ravens and just could not hang. The offensive line was just unplayably bad. Particularly on the interior again, who when they dropped their center and let him go, you're going to play them later on. And I imagine that comes with a lot of really, really good snaps for Jeffrey Simmons and his partner in a minute, John Franklin Myers, who took a little bit of a down year last year in terms of just some of his down to downgrade stuff, but another one who can wreak havoc on quarterbacks. Only 600 snaps last year, but 8 sacks, 39 total pressures. And you can't double team both of these guys unless you really, really want to leave a tight end on an edge on the outside or 2 tight ends on an edge. There's 5 guys on the line, 4 on the D line. You get 1 double team in there. If Franklin Myers is just playing well, he's going to get his, man. It's just what it's going to be. So this is going to be a really, really difficult tandem to deal with throughout the season. Again, if you have a bad interior, I imagine that the Titans are going to cause some problems through the middle. So we'll see what that looks like. But they can certainly blow up some they can blow up some drives, blow up some plays, cause turnovers. I have no doubt that the interior here, as long as it's healthy, can cause quite a few problems this year in the NFL. On the outside is a little bit different. It's fine. Jermaine Johnson comes over from the Jets. He played with Saleh a little bit, and his first 2 years in the NFL were good, and he's fallen off a little the last 2 years, so Saleh hopefully can kind of get him back to those first 2 years in the NFL. We'll see. Jacob Martin is on the other side. Nothing great there. Hasn't really had a good career at all. And just frankly continues to grade as one of the worse off edges in the league. We'll see what happens. They have Keldrick Falk behind him on the depth chart at the moment. We'll see if he can do some useful snaps from the exterior there. First year in the league, relatively high draft capital. Hopefully he can kind of work his way into the starting lineup, to be perfectly frank. If he can, and he's good, and you get a step up on those exterior rushers, and Jermaine Johnson takes a step, and again, Keldrick Falk is more useful than Martin, then you're looking at a pretty fearsome defensive line. But for the moment, young rookie, we'll see what he can do. Rest of the unit, Oladipo didn't play well last year. Younger player, though, so we'll see if he can kind of take a step. He was drafted relatively high, so hopefully the step is there. Solomon Thomas has been around a really long time. Never really turned into much after that heavy draft capital I think the Niners used on him. I think it was 3rd overall pick. Just never really turned into that guy, but has been around a long time as a vet, so maybe can come in and do some rotational stuff and be decent. Jordan Elliott hasn't been particularly great his whole career. The rest of this depth is kind of empty, so can't really afford too many injuries here. Again, the front line, if you're getting good snaps out of Jermaine Johnson, the front line's going to be pretty dangerous. Everything after that could be problematic if the rookie doesn't hit the ground running, or Oladipo doesn't take a step, or Solomon Thomas is just continuing to be really bad. But again, love the top line and can see some games where Simmons and Franklin Myers are just eating up interiors and causing just tons and tons of problems. So we'll see what that looks like, but definitely the best unit on the team by a pretty significant margin. Linebacker, This is okay. Again, it's like a bottom third unit. There are a couple of those where it's like a bottom third unit, but not actively horrible. Cody Barton starting on one side, fine in coverage, fine in run stop. Again, just kind of below average, not great, but not actively horrible. Cedric Gray, coverage very similar to that. Whatever in coverage, nothing great. His run stop grade last year was nuts, through the roof good. So we'll see if he can continue to do that. Um, because if he can, then it kind of gives the unit just like an ability to stand out somewhere. If he's like average and run stuff and it kind of just goes back down to what he was, then this is just like the most below average unit in the NFL, really. Anthony Hill comes in via the draft for depth. We'll see what he looks like. We'll see if he can make some noise here because, again, I'm not super high on this unit as a whole. We'll see if I think, third round pick can cause problems. The rest of the depth, Diabate can get downhill a little bit. That's about it. James Williams, further down the line here, we're getting guys who can't really do much. And that's kind of what happens when the top two can't really do a ton. So hopefully the run defense stuff is really good, continues to be good for Cedric Gray. But we'll have to wait and see. Otherwise, we're looking at just a below average unit. Secondary. This is interesting because, again, they did spend money to bring stuff in. Alontae Taylor comes in. Cordell Flott comes in. I just don't know if they've gotten like a ton better. Like, I think you want to get like way, way better when you bring this much money into a unit, but I don't know if they've gotten way, way better. Alontae Taylor was fine last year. Can't really run defend like at all. Decent in coverage. It's also his first decent year, which again we've spoken about, where it's a little bit of a worry when players in a contract year only have a decent year in that final year, and the three before were not good. And again, that comes with growth, which is, that's the expectation or the hope with Alontae Taylor. It's also kind of keeps me from putting my foot on the gas and that this is who he is. And again, even last year, he was fine. Nothing super great. Cordell Flott, another one who was pretty decent in coverage. 41st ranked corner last year on PFF. Had some really good stretches. But there's also a world where he just kind of stood out on a pretty bad Giants secondary. So we'll see what those two bring to the table. I'm not going to put them in like a really good realm just yet. I need to see this happening pretty consistently. But again, they did get slightly better. The floor got raised here a little bit. I'm not sure how high the ceiling is here, number one, and number two, I'm not so sure the floor is as high as like the paychecks are kind of being given out here. So we'll see. Marcus Harris, he was fine in his limited snaps last year. This is a full-time role now, though. Looks like he's going to be the starter. He's certainly the starter on the depth chart at the moment. So we'll see what that looks like, but not a super high floor there. Amani Hooker kind of took a bit of a step back last year, but he's had a really long career of solid play. So hopefully he gets back to that, and it could just be a down year. Like, these are when you have a long career of just doing solid stuff, and you have a down year and a year where a team wins, for 3 games, and the vibes are all messed up, and you're changing guys around and things like that. You can kind of forgive. Defense tends to be the spot where people kind of relax a little bit and you can kind of feel it, particularly when the offense isn't going. I remember specifically with that really good Jets team, and I think it was Zach Wilson, where they just gave up one day, and I forgot who they were playing, but they gave up like 50 out of nowhere, and they had been good all year, and they just let go of the rope. And you can kind of forgive a little bit of that sometimes, and we'll see if that's what happened to Amani Hooker last year. But again, it's a player who's been around a long time with solid play, so hopefully he can step back up. Again, the run defense stuff was still pretty good. It's the coverage stuff that kind of took a bit of a step back. Kevin Winston will be next to him. Just a below average player. Run defense stuff was solid. Coverage stuff, not so much. And again, didn't play a ton of snaps, so coming into a starter role and getting more and more snaps in there, we'll see if he can replicate that and maybe take a step. But for now, it's just kind of an okay player. Depth, Tony Adams is useful in short bursts these days. Uh, that's kind of it, genuinely. Like Josh Williams at corner, he's been decent throughout his career in limited snaps. We'll see. But like Brooks, Reed, Kane at safety, Robinson, Hallett there. They did lose a guy that they thought could make some noise in the secondary in the corner room, the undrafted rookie, but he does miss the rest of the year. There really isn't any depth pretty much whatsoever here, which kind of sucks. But we're hoping the floor takes a step. Again, Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott are probably upgrades. They're just not like humongous upgrades that come with the money kind of spent is all. So it'll probably be a little bit better. How much better? I'm not so sure. So we'll see. As for the schedule, this is an interesting one. It's got some tough teams on it. Again, you're in the AFC South, which used to be kind of funny, but at the moment, you're looking at three pretty good teams in the South. They went, again, Titans go 0-6 last year in this division. They could go 0-6 again, and I wouldn't be super surprised. The Jags are kind of ascending a little bit. Houston are good. The Colts, when they're healthy, are good. We'll see what that looks like, but it's not a run-over division anymore, which makes these schedules pretty hard because, again, you only get 11 other games outside of the division, and when you're projected to go 0-6 in the division, it's pretty tough. So they do start off with a winnable game. They got the Jets at home. Then they got Philly week 2. Then they go and play the other New York team at the Giants. Again, there are a lot of Jets and Giants on this team, particularly Giants that came over with Daboll. So that'll be kind of funky. Then you're at Baltimore, home to Houston, at Indianapolis. That is a nasty 3-game stretch. Then you get Cleveland at home, which is winnable. And then at Cincinnati before your bye week. And then another pretty difficult 3-game stretch. You get the Jags at home after the bye week, at Dallas, at Jacksonville. So more division horror there. Then you get Washington, which we were talking about. That's the type of team you think you can eat up on the inside. And then you're at Detroit, home to Indianapolis. And then the last 3 games here at Vegas, home to Pittsburgh, and at Houston to end the year. And again, when your division is tough and you have only 11 other games, when you get some tough games on there, again, you're playing the AFC North. You get Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati and Baltimore both on the road. You get Cleveland in there, and then one of your NFC games is at Detroit, and then Washington, who we talked about, who you hope you can kind of beat, but you get at Dallas in there. The Giants, the Eagles, you're playing the NFC East, who could take a step forward. It's a pretty difficult schedule again. And again, when last year was a really tough schedule at the end of it, this year is going to be tough again because, again, you're playing the AFC North, you're playing the NFC East, who are both have 3 teams that are moving in the right direction. You're playing the AFC South, who have 3 teams that are better than you on paper, and you play them 6 times. It's just really, really tough going into it. And again, there are winnable games here, games you can hang in, games you have pretty good spots in. Again, Jacksonville after the bye, at home, Washington. You can win games in division at home. You get the Giants, you get the Jets. So there are winnable. You get the Browns. There are winnable games for sure. Pittsburgh at home, you can probably hang with. There are winnable games for sure. In terms of getting over a win total, though, getting to 6 or 7 wins, it'll be kind of tough going into it. And again, we didn't play any over-unders in particular. We did play one. Titans to finish last in the division at plus 110, a $5.51 bet. We played this for a couple of reasons. Number one, we were talking about the schedule and just the team itself. And this is a growing year. It's going to be a year of change, and hopefully you can kind of step forward. But even if you do step forward, what are we looking at as a ceiling here? Like 8 kind of wins. you can still finish last in this division with 8 wins with the way everything else is set up. Again, Indianapolis were 8-2 to start the year last year before Jones got hurt. He's back. We'll see how healthy he is. Houston are really good. Jacksonville are moving in the right direction. Won the division last year. The two of those made the playoffs. You could win 8 games and still finish last in this division. So we, instead of playing some unders, we played some last in the division because we're a little bit higher on some of the guys in the division. We also played some Cam Ward most interceptions at plus 2,200, a $1.50 bet for us in our challenge. This is just, again, I'm not a big Cam Ward guy. I never was. I'm not going to be right now. He has to take a step going forward. We'll see if he does or not. Again, I'm not throwing out this idea that he's a throwaway quarterback, that you have to get rid of him right now and just restart. I'm not saying that. But he has got some turnovers in him, and he takes a lot of sacks. And quarterbacks who like to run around and throw up prayers, he's, one of those. And he's not going to get benched. Like, I don't know if there's a world where he gets benched. I mean, he might get hurt, but like, this is supposed to be your quarterback of the future, number 1 overall pick. What's the idea there, that halfway through your second year that you're benching him? Probably not. So my expectation is that if he's healthy, he's playing all 17 games. And for a player who had more turnover worthy plays last year than big time throws, I can see him continuing to kind of make mistakes. And I imagine the coaching staff will kind of want to get those mistakes out as long as he's progressing. So we'll see. Again, last year he had trying to find snaps. His 662 pass snaps last year, 623 dropbacks, and he had 23 turnover worthy plays, which was 40th in the league. So if he's anywhere in that realm, he'll probably be in that realm of most interceptions in the league again, as long as he's healthy. So we'll see what that looks like. We'll see if we can cash any of those. But those are the Titans. It's a restart year. It's a reset year. Let's see if we can see some growth here, and we're going to find out.